most recently as president of the Alberta Enterprise Group. Before that, she was a radio host with Chorus Entertainment for 6 years. It is my honour and privilege to welcome Premier Smith.
Well, thank you so much for hosting me here today and hosting and giving such a warm welcome to our new ministers, including our Minister of Municipal Affairs, Rebecca Schultz, who I understand Paul McLaughlin kept out till 2 o'clock in the morning last night. I don't know why I wasn't invited to Sherlock Holmes, but I'm just putting it out there that maybe next year. I do want to express my gratitude, though, to the RMA for the opportunity to speak at your fall convention, because it is a pleasure to join so many proud, hard-working rural Albertans, so I can reintroduce myself to you in this new role. I also want to connect some of the things that I talked about during the leadership campaign so that you can understand the impact that they're going to have on your lives. First of all, I want you to know that I am one of you. I have spent a good chunk of my life in rural Alberta and small-town Alberta, and not just as a politician. I've been a landowner advocate, I've been a resident, a property owner, a restaurant owner in rural Alberta, so I'm very much aware of the challenges that you deal with every day. And I have some idea about how the province should work with you to address these problems. I also know that there have been differences of opinion in the past between our provincial government and our municipal leaders. When I was a radio host, for instance, I had just a couple of years ago, I did have the chance to talk to many municipal leaders during the last round of the elections, and I became familiar with quite a few councils and their priorities. And I just want to use what I learned to help reset the relationship between the government and municipal government with your municipal leaders, because in point of fact, we're all serving the same people. We're all working together to make sure rural Alberta is stronger, healthier, and more prosperous for everyone. I want to build a truly constructive relationship between us so that we can deliver real, measurable progress for rural Alberta and to improve quality of life, so that we can avoid conflicts, and so we can address Albertans' priorities together. And in this, I want to be clear about one thing, and that is in changing how our UCP government will conduct ourselves. I believe in empowering our individual MLAs. I think almost every person in this room comes from a municipality that has a UCP MLA representing them in the legislature. Maybe it felt like you had to go directly to the minister or to the premier or the premier's office officials when you had an important issue to raise to get resolved, and the MLA would step in afterwards. Well, we're going to do things differently now. And Minister Schultz and I have made it abundantly clear to our caucus that they are empowered to and accountable for being the voice of their local municipalities. Because, call me old-fashioned, but I do believe that local representatives do their best work when they actually get to represent you. So I should speak to the issue of a policy. Yeah, truly. I'll enter this next section. I tried to make a joke when I met with my municipal councils when I was in the Brooks Medicine Hat by-election. I said, gee, I sure hope you're all registered as lobbyists to talk to me. Oh, good. I got more laughs than I did there, I can tell you. So let me speak to the issue of the member-passed proposal about municipal leaders registering as lobbyists to deal with the province. And I understand that that was born out of a sense of frustration that our members had about how fractious the relationship had become with some councils over the last few years. But it may not be the best way to address that issue. We have to address some of those underlying causes, and we intend to listen to all municipal leaders to get an impact on how that would impact you. No decisions have been made on that until we've had a chance to consult with everyone. But do know that our goal is to maintain a positive working relationship that allows for every level of government to best serve Albertans. Now, let me talk for a moment about Ukraine, because we need to better work together, because over the last few years have been hard on all of us. And while it would be nice to say that the chaos and uncertainty of the world is going to fade with the end of the pandemic, for many of us, we know that that is just not the case. I think in particular of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the toll it's taken on so many Albertans of Ukrainian descent. Albertans who've got loved ones in the war zone, for whom the conflict is a lot more personal, deserve to know that government supports them, and we do. That's why I'm announcing today that I will be establishing the Premier's Advisory Task Force on Ukraine. The task force will be led by Jackie Armstrong-Hominick and be mandated to engage with the Ukrainian community, the not-for-profits, the NGOs, settlement programs, and other supports for Ukrainian communities. And I'm going to be asking the task force to provide me with a report no later than January 15th with concrete recommendations on how the government of Alberta can support our Ukrainian communities and, in particular, Ukrainian newcomers in the immediate and the longer term. So in the intermediate term, we're also going to be hosting a Ukrainian roundtable in Edmonton on November the 14th, which will include members of the Ukrainian World and Canadian Congress. I look forward to reporting back to you as the task force does its work. Let's talk a minute, though, about our priorities. In Canada, we are fortunate to be free of this kind of violence and conflict. However, that doesn't mean that we are immune to global instability. The global economy is currently facing a severe crisis of inflation and supply chain disruptions that hits all of us directly and indirectly, including right in our wallets. And while it would be great to have a federal partner who stands with us in fighting the affordability crisis, in truth, Alberta is on its own. When you combine skyrocketing inflation with federal policies that target the energy industry and damage the economy, the result is a crisis for regular working families. Whether it's fuel or electricity, groceries, fertilizer for our farmers, the cost of everything we need to live and to raise our families, it has soared. We can't solve this inflation crisis on our own, but we can certainly balance the province's books as well as help Albertans cope with the worst financial pressures. So in the coming weeks, and it won't be that long, this government is going to take decisive action to ensure that families don't have to choose between buying food and keeping warm in the winter. We're going to lower the cost of electricity to ease the financial burden for seniors and parents and vulnerable Albertans. Our government is going to ensure that they have more money in their wallets right away to meet the rising costs of life's necessities at this critical time. Our government is also going to lock in removing the provincial fuel tax and ensure that the gas stations lower the prices appropriately when we do that. Alberta is home to massive energy resources which belong to you, and it's time to ensure that you benefit from that ownership. Affordability is the main challenge facing Albertans today. We have a new affordability minister and utilities that you met earlier today, Matt Jones. And every decision we make from now until this crisis is over is going to reflect this fact. Our second priority is creating jobs and strengthening our economy. We will index and lower your taxes so that families do not have to choose between their mortgage and buying nutritious food. We'll also look at lowering taxes for our producers, innovators, and entrepreneurs. Our goal is to attract businesses from all over the world into every sector, from agriculture to forestry to tourism to energy. We need to diversify our economy and promote more jobs and prosperity for all Albertans. Our next priority is health care. Alberta is home to incredibly high-skilled, compassionate, and amazing medical professionals. Our nurses and doctors, our paramedics, and others are the best in the country. My dad was just recently hospitalized, and he had the very best care from the frontline workers, but it took 20 hours for him to get admitted from the emergency room into the hospital. And so we're experiencing it too. I'm a premier, but I'm also a daughter who cares about her dad. And this is something we must fix. Our frontline workers are getting completely burnt out. And when we don't have our staffing levels up, what results is that they end up canceling surgeries. This has to change, and fast, because Albertans in need of care can't wait any longer. And it won't surprise you in rural Alberta that we also have a crisis in emergency medical services. People wait way too long for emergency room treatment. The system is broken. Failure is no longer an option. There also needs to be we need to free up hospital beds by moving some patients who are awaiting long-term care permanent placement into more appropriate care facilities where they can be a lot more comfortable. Without disrupting frontline services, we have to start making some major changes quickly. We will ensure that all areas of the province have prompt, efficient ambulance service to address emergency room lineups. We're also going to improve triage to ensure that those needing additional care, but not a hospital bed, are moved to appropriate facilities and supported there. There's room for enhanced surgical initiatives, turning to underused operating rooms in rural hospitals to complete orthopedic work like hip and knee surgeries and others. I found this all over the province as I was traveling around. 2 open operating rooms in Hardisty, and 2 that aren't being used in Medicine Hat, and 2 that aren't being used in High Prairie, and 2 that aren't being used in Grand Prairie. We can use that extra surgical capacity and clear that surgical backlog. We should be running all 106 of AHS facilities at full volume to get through the surgical wait list. And then as we start developing the contracting processes and people see that it works, there's going to be more potential to expand to independent charter surgical facilities for specialized procedures. So there is going to be lots of opportunity for medical professionals and surgeons who think in innovative ways to meet that demand. And any and all changes will be fully compliant with the Canada Health Act. There are plenty of opportunities for improvement, and we are adopting a yes attitude to bring better, more efficient health care to all Albertans. There can be no doubt that the current federal government is just the latest in a long line of federal governments that have frustrated the legitimate aspirations of hardworking Albertans. And that stops now. We will be asserting our constitutional rights when Ottawa announces policies and laws that attack our economy or violate the rights of our people. You've seen this most recently, I think, in Saskatchewan, where they developed a Saskatchewan First Act. So the idea is catching on. We are going to introduce and pass the Alberta Sovereignty Act, and then we are going to use it to push Ottawa back into its own lane every single time they step out of line and intrude on our constitutional rights. Alberta is no longer going to ask permission from Ottawa to be prosperous and free. Those days are done. Our government will build a strong and united Canada instead of just accepting the federal government's misguided efforts, which only serve to harm our economy and strangle Alberta. Now, you've probably already heard some of these issues today, because as we do all this, our government will treat rural Alberta and you with the respect that you deserve. Yesterday, I issued a mandate letter to our Municipal Affairs Minister, Rebecca Schultz. We will work with you to ensure that municipalities have the necessary resources for public spending. You've been asking for consistent long-term funding so that you can plan effectively. And that's why the local government fiscal framework will replace the Municipal Sustainability Initiative. I know that the previous Minister of Municipal Affairs had already done a lot of work on that. Municipalities will receive $722 million in the first year. Future funding will rise based on changes in provincial revenues, ensuring municipalities share in the benefits of economic growth as key partners and have the resources necessary to manage its impacts. And this will make municipalities, together with the province, partners in Alberta's prosperity. So there will be a 3-year funding lag between provincial revenue changes and municipal funding, so that municipalities will still be able to invest in infrastructure even when provincial revenues may not be as high. This will provide municipalities with certainty and predictability. The new funding level and ties to provincial revenue changes will ensure that funding is sustainable for Alberta. Minister Schultz will continue the work to finalize the local government fiscal framework allocation formula and program design of the framework based on your input. Now, that said, as a longer-term alternative, I've also asked for Minister Schultz to consult with you on the feasibility of changing the provincial education property tax so that more of those dollars stay in the communities where they are generated. And I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback on that. I've also tasked her with consulting with the RMA and the energy industry on the issue of linear tax and unpaid municipal property tax bills. We are working on finding a long-term solution to cleaning up unused well sites so that we can also put that land back into production. And government recently approved a grant to RMA to create and deliver educational material for members to help them implement special liens. We will continue to work with the RMA to monitor progress, and we will keep supporting municipalities by extending the provincial education requisition credit to include the 2023-24 fiscal year. That means that municipalities are not liable for submitting education taxes they are unable to collect from companies. And finally, I have a request to make of you. My ask of you is that you work with us to dramatically reduce the amount of time it takes to get permits approved. It is the #1 complaint that I hear from business leaders. And if we want to attract more industrial development and establish new business parks in rural Alberta, we have to work together on streamlining the approval process to get to yes faster. And I'd ask that you work with us on that. So this is what you can expect from our government. Immediate action on the most pressing problems facing our province and our people. Aggressive pushback against federal intrusions that threaten our economy and our way of life. Strong support for businesses, entrepreneurs, and freedom. And close cooperation with municipalities on the issue that matter to you as we establish a great and long-lasting friendship and partnership. And I mean what I say. Rural Alberta matters to me on a very personal level. It's where I've lived and it's where I've built my livelihood. It's where I expect to spend the rest of my days. And I want you to succeed. I want your communities to grow, develop, and become a magnet to global investment so that everyone in rural Alberta can count on good jobs and provide for their families. But I don't want it to lose the qualities that make rural Alberta such a unique and amazing place. The RMA and all municipal governments are key to finding the right path forward. Municipalities in the province, we both have the privilege of serving Albertans together. And through our partnership and service together, I'm looking forward to all of the amazing things that we are going to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Premier, and definitely we collaborate, we're friends, and we work together, so thank you so much for